Hello subscribers and welcome back to the channel. Today I have Andire joining me all the way from Milton Keynes. Today we're going to be talking about offshore bonds and existing products that clients have. The reason we chose this topic is Andire's had a lot of these clients of late. Andire, I believe you've just come back from a weekend away. I believe you're in Amsterdam, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. It was very nice. Very
nice.
Mm-hmm.
How was your weekend?
Yeah, a lot of activities and, trying to switch off, a bit from, our lives as IFAs. It's very intensive and you need to relax and think about other things, so that you are a better IFA. Mm-hmm.
No, I was actually pleased to see you leave the IFA group for once as part of your weekend away. I was like, that's good. I always try to do that when I'm on annual leave. Okay, so today, subscribers, I don't really have much of a script at all. Today is just kind of going straight into it. So same for you, Andire. You haven't had any pre-questions from me today. Andire, what I want to get you to talk about is, I've seen you working with a couple of these types of cases recently. What is your experience of clients having existing offshore bonds, and what kind of advice processes have you been through with some of your clients?
Mm-hmm. So just as a step backwards, right? So your typical client with an offshore bond is an expat, living in the UK, going, for example, to Dubai for work. And, the scenario here, if you are working overseas, like in Dubai, you cannot contribute to your SIP, right? Because you don't have UK earnings. And, your SIP, your pension is the most efficient way to save money because you are deferring taxes. So what they're trying to do with an offshore bond, they're trying to mimic, that tax deferral mechanism, right? So they will invest in a portfolio, normal, whatever the advisor is recommending them, inside a bond. And these bonds, what it does, it's growing, tax-free. But then when they are retrieving, when they're in drawdown, they will let them retrieve 5% of the bond, tax-free as well. So they are trying to mimic the same mechanisms that as you have with a pension pot. And as I said, it's mostly with clients that are overseas, right?
Okay. And what would you say is that's kind of like, I guess, the positive side. What have you seen in your experience of clients with offshore bonds, whether that be a direct investment or say like a pension wrapper or a trustee or QROP or SIP on something on top? What's been your general experience with these types of clients?
Yeah, so you have two types of clients, right? So you have the ones that is just an investment, right, inside the bond. There is no pension, right, or underlying. Or you have clients, for instance, I have another client who transferred a DB pension into a SIP, and then they put the bond inside the SIP. But he was not contributing anymore because the client moved to the US, right? So those are the type of clients that you can see. In principle, and this is why, you always say the positive, right? It makes sense, it's good to mimic and to defer taxes as much as possible. The problem with these bonds is how you structure the bond, right? And the costs involved. And most of them, they have very high commissions inside the bond. Not all of them, and this is something that you can choose, the advisor can choose. So for instance, I was giving also, I have a client in similar situation, we needed to do a top up. And then when I was talking to the bond provider, he gave me the choice, you can have the bond with this high commission, with this high structure, or you can have the same bond with clean, with no high commission. So it's something the IFA can choose. And that is the risk, that sometimes there are IFAs, because again, these are offshore, so they are not, the IFA is not regulated by a UK regulator, right? Sometimes they may choose, not always, but typically, sometimes they can go for the high commission bonds. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's something which is quite prevalent. And just as Andire is saying there, an advisor working outside of the UK, whichever regulation they're working on, large parts of the world obviously don't have a ban on commission like the UK has since 2012. So Andire, if you were to take, say, every case you've had so far of a client coming through with an existing offshore bond, whether it be inside a pension wrapper or outside of a pension wrapper, what would be your general summary of things like the performance, the charges, and the transparency? And more importantly, how did the clients feel? Like, what was their feedback? What were they saying to you, basically?
So here as well, you have a lot of things. So I have clients that they were in very bad investments and very, very expensive bonds. But again, that was IFA's recommendation, right? Other clients, the investments were okay. I mean, they were performing, so investments were good. I will not touch the investments because they're growing right now. In terms of the costs, they were paying all together 1.2%, which is, okay, it's expensive if you compare with other settings, right? But it's not like, like the other client that was paying almost 2%. So you have everything. It's very diverse because, again, it's dependent on the IFA. So the IFA can set up any commissions, any recommendation about portfolios, anything. So there is not, you can see everything.
Yeah. And what, in your opinion, is the problem of commissions?
So the commissions, I think the major problem is that clients don't understand it very well what they are getting into. Because so basically the commission is a 10-year, structure. And what the bond does, so the bond is deferring this, so it's accruing every year. You get the commission on a yearly basis, but you are locked in for 10 years. So you need to pay the commission either way, all in one go, or year on year. And of course, when they come to us for advice, right? So they are telling us, okay, do you think this makes sense? Will you recommend me to get out of the bond, right? And this is when I do the recommendation from there, which is free of cost. I put up with the cost. But basically what I'm telling them is, okay, here you are now. This is your structure. This is your investment portfolio. This is the costing. And this is how much it will take you in terms of costs to get out of there. Right. And what they see, what happens is that the client, if they want to get out of the bond, yes, to come with me, for instance, I get out of the bond, they need to pay, it's a sunk cost, right? They need to pay the entire commission remaining in just one go. And this psychologically for many clients is a bit hit, right? Because maybe they need to pay up front, 20,000, 10,000 pounds, which is it's huge. But this is just the commission that they will need to pay anyways, year on year for the next 5, 6, 7 years, so the remaining term of the bond, Then mathematically, of course, you can always, discuss this. If you do the math, if you just take the hit on 1 year, it's depending what the market is doing. If the market is going up, it's going to be worse. But if the market is falling, then you're going to be better off. So mathematically, it's not 100%, right? What is best to do. But what is 100% true is that commission is real for the term of the bond, right? So either you pay it all in one go up front, or you pay it year on year until the remaining term of the bond.
Yeah, because in fairness, offshore bonds, one of the good advantages of offshore bonds is you have a very wide range of investment options. So, for example, all of the ETF passive portfolio that we recommend to clients, all of them are available inside an offshore bond. So, say you had a client, we had an example, they've been, most of the bonds have an 8 or a 10-year exit penalty. Say you had a client who's been in their portfolio for 5 years, they have 3 years left until the end of their 8-year period. What would be your recommendation to them? Obviously, it's a hypothetical situation. Would you recommend them to update their existing portfolio inside the bond to mirror what we would have inside if we were, say, using a clean FCA regulated platform? Or would you recommend them to come out of the bond, go into the platform, and then invest in those funds there? Because the only difficulty could be possibly almost like a duplication of charges, so to speak, because for the previous 3 years, if they go into a platform as well, they'll then be paying the platform charges on top of having to pay the exit penalty to got out of their bond in the first place, right?
Exactly. So you're duplicating. So if it is only 3 years to finish, right, the bond term, I will I mean, I will need to do the numbers, right? But most probably I will recommend to stay because, once you pay all these high commissions, once the 10-year period has elapsed, then the bond is very cheap. So then is when you're really taking advantage of the structure, right? So if it is just 3 years more to go, if you can change the investment, imagine if they are because this is something that you see as well, right? Some clients, they are invested in funds that they are very, very expensive. So if you are able to just do those changes inside the bond, right? Then I would really recommend, stay there for 3 more years, because in 3 years, the cost of the bond, of the vehicle, is going to be very, very cheap if you compare to the platform, right? So that would be my recommendation. Yeah.
And what would you say, and again, this is where it gets difficult with offshore bonds. I just said a moment ago how one of the advantages is that you can invest in a broad range of investments. However, would you say it's good, Andiri, to be able to invest in such a broad range of investments compared to, say, an FCA regulated platform where they just won't allow you to invest in certain funds or investments?
Yeah, that's a funny one, because at the end of the day, it's like when you're thinking that you're much better off if you have a lot of possibilities, but that also brings a lot of not risk, but that brings a lot of funds that active manage, right? That they're very, very expensive. And we know that over the last 10 years, active managed funds didn't outperform passive managed fund. I mean, ETFs, for instance, on average, right? And always we need to think on average over the last 10 years. I mean, we are not cherry picking funds. Maybe some active managed funds have outperformed the benchmark, right? But we are talking here on average, right? And this is very important. So maybe clients think, wow, I have the entire universe here. I can start cherry picking funds. But look, at the end of the day, we at Cameron James, our investment philosophy is like, we are going to give the clients the benchmark, right? What the market is growing at a very, very effective cost, right? And trying to outperform the market, again, on average, is not working, it's not happening. And this is data is being revealing this, right? It's not that we are inventing that. So when you look at the data over the last 10 years, there is no outperformance, right? So at the end of the day, having all these options, it can bring more confusion to the clients, because there is a lot of funds with a lot of costs doing very strange things out there, right? So at the end, having something vanilla, very cost effective, just promising the clients, we are not rainmakers here. You're gonna get what the market is giving according to your risk profile. I think this is a very safe option, especially when you're talking about pensions, and that you need to have something more standard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were quite polite in the way that you worded that. From my experience of offshore bonds, one of the biggest problems is, you have underlying funds in there which are 2.5. I've even seen 3.5% total expense ratio of those underlying funds. Now, if I went to any of our UK platforms that we work with, or if you went to the Andiri, they simply categorically would not allow you to invest in those funds because they're extremely expensive. Charging 3.5% per year to a client just for the fund, not even including the bond itself, is very, very expensive. However, in the offshore market, where a lot of the bonds are based, they have certain agreements with financial advisory firms and whatever, where they allow these more expensive funds to come in. So I think you're very polite in the way you worded that, but having a broad range of assets that you can invest in. And this is why it always comes down to people who say, oh, an offshore bond is bad, or offshore bonds are a rip-off. That's what people often say, but that's not true. As you mentioned earlier, Andy, an offshore bond, the last time I checked, last time I wrote an offshore bond a long time ago, it was like, there was like 97 or 60 or 70 different types of charging schedules that could go into that one offshore bond. So you could have a client at one end of the spectrum who was working with a zero commission bond that was kind of coming in towards the end when I was working there. But now, so anyway, there's a lot of difference inside the bond, whilst in my opinion, if you go for an FCA regulated platform, the cost is what the cost is. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter who your financial advisor is. It doesn't matter who the financial advisory firm is. It's a clean, flat, and transparent. So have you had any examples of clients transferring out of their offshore bonds yet? Or so far in your experience, you've been updating the underlying portfolio with a low cost passive ETF portfolio and then waiting for the exit penalty to expire? Or feel free to give us a couple of examples.
Yeah, so I had, the client, the client I was trying to help, and I'm helping him now, he didn't get out of the bond. And as well as psychologically, right, he didn't want to take the hit. But this is also here in investments as well. It's not always what the math says, right? Or what it's not rational, or rationality is not the main driver. We also need to think about clients' emotions, right? And to explain to a client, of course, that now after all these commissions and after all these purely performance, you've been losing so much money, and now you're gonna get a further hit. That was too much for him, right? So emotionally, he couldn't cope that. And then I said, okay, of course, no worries. So you stay in the bond. And then after, I think it's 5 years more remaining, we see what we can do next. So what I did, I updated the portfolio. Now we were so lucky because timing wise, because we just did it before the latest rally, in the market. So now the portfolio is picking up, right? And it's rallying. So he's very happy like this. And sometimes, at the end of the day, you need to be happy with the investment decisions that you are making. Of course, because, and again, this is not only math, this is also emotions, right? When you're talking to clients, to retail clients with their pensions and so on. Other clients, for instance, they come but they're asset managers, right? So they understand very, very, very clearly what a sunk cost is, and they don't care. They said, okay, well, whatever. So you just take it out now. So because they know the math because they're asset managers, right? So they know it's ingrained in themselves, right? So they don't really care. So you have to always play with the psychology and the emotions of the clients. And at the end of the day, staying in the bond, as we discussed, right? If it is only 3 more years to go, maybe it's a good thing, to stay in the bond, update the underlying portfolio and so on. And funny enough, for the first client, that stood in the bond, he had also another top up, coming into the SIP. And then for this top up, I was able to put it in the platform, right? Because the bond providers, they will not allow me for the amount that it was to bring it in without costs in the existing bond. And this is very shocking if you think about it. When I talked to the provider, they said, okay, look, you can put whatever commission you want. And I said, no, I want a clean bond. I don't want extra layers of commissions. And they said, for this amount of money, we can do that. So I needed to look to another provider and plug a platform inside the SIP. So there are always, ways to structure things for clients. And as IFS, our job is to do the best in the interest of the client and forget about all these commissions, because that is not the way to do money, in the market. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also with the offshore bonds, one of the issues I remember was that whatever charging schedule is chosen from the beginning of the bond, as you say, for any future top-ups, often they will want to apply the same charging schedule. So whatever charging schedule perhaps your IFA used from 6, 7, 8 years ago, that will be the charging schedule that any new financial advisor has to use if you want to top up that bond, which effectively means the bond will automatically try to kick out commission again, because then it locks the client in for a further 8 or 10 year period, according to most offshore bonds and how they work. So again, clients often, in my experience, I think they misunderstood that. They think that they have an 8 year penalty from the day they began the plan, but each new contribution has a new 8 year penalty and an 8 year sliding commission. And viewers, just to give you a basic example of this, say on the 1st of January 2025, if you invested £500,000 into an offshore bond with commission, the commission bandings are up to around 7%. So obviously that's a £35,000 commission that we were paid on day one of you transferring into that bond. As soon as the money arrives, the financial advisory firm who set it up, we could get paid their 7% or whatever commission banding they've chosen. That £35,000 though, the offshore bond provider is not stupid. the casino never loses, they've physically paid £35,000 to the financial advisory firm whose job it is then meant to be to service you for the period of that 8 years. Now, I'm not here to say people run different business models. There might be some fantastic financial advisors and financial advisory firms out there who get paid their 7% commission at the beginning, but they say to themselves mentally, I'm going to service this client like heck for the next 8 years, and at the end of the 8 years, I'm going to carry on with great service. Unfortunately, that's not what we see. Otherwise, all these people wouldn't be getting in touch with us. Generally, they say, I've lost touch with my financial advisor, or no one's contacting me. I've been passed around the office between 5 financial advisors. Why? Because at the beginning, the commission was paid, and back then maybe they didn't add an ongoing fee because the charge was so high already. So what happens over the course of those 8 years is the offshore bond provider will then recuperate that 7% commission from the client's portfolio, maybe at 1.5% per annum or 1% per annum over the course of 8 years, to repay the £35,000 and obviously recoup their own profits, because obviously they're an organisation as well. So yeah, a really complicated topic. And what would you say now, Andiri, to clients who are beginning their advice processes if they're at the roadmap and they say, okay, I can either go for this offshore bond or I can go for an FCA regulated platform? What would be your advice in the majority of instances?
Mm-hmm. Well, you need to think about their situation, right? If, for example, if it is this client, if you are moving overseas and you cannot, do top-ups or contributions to your pension, the vehicle can be a good option, the investment vehicle. The thing is, what they need to really consider and is to shop around for advisors, right? And to make sure that they understand the commissions of the bond and how the IFA is going to be paid, so to say, right? Because as I said, you can be in a bond in a clean structure. I was offered that by the bond provider. The bond itself is not bad, right? Well, and at some extent is good because you can defer tax. The problem is what the IFA chooses, to do with the bond, right? You can have, like, for example, client A, IFA was, fired. Client was without IFA for over 5 years. Investment product, underlying portfolio underperforming and over 1.5%, charges, just the fund, and so on. So very bad scenario. But you can have client B that was okay. IFA was doing a good job. Well, it was expensive, but at least the client understood the costs and it was not over the top. And then portfolio funds, they were okay. They were over 50 basis points, right? The entire portfolio, but they were performing quite well, because, well, they were also exposed to a very, very high risk. It was a very high risk portfolio, maybe more than what the client wanted to have, but okay. But it was a good bet, right? So the portfolio is making money. So, and again, it's like you have a product that is designed to be used in a good way. Different IFAs, they choose to use it in different ways, right? And that is where you have different outcomes for clients that are not positive all the times.
Yeah, understood. And a final question, Andiri. Who do you think is to blame for the commissions? If we take the opinion that commissions are not good, which I'll be honest is my own personal opinion of doing this business industry for 13 years and seeing the client outcomes and results, I think transparent charging and fees are much better. But whose fault do you think the commission is? The bond providers who are offering the commissions, or the financial advisors who are accepting the commissions?
Yeah, so at the end of the day is what you said, right? Commissions is business model, is how IFAs make money, right? And the provider, they offer you, they ask you how you want to make money. This is something that they tell you over the phone, how much you want to make here. So it's always the IFA. Well, okay, let's not be categorically right and talk in absolute terms, right? Because this is typically, let's say that, typically is the IFA, because the IFA always has the choice to charge the client in a way or in another way. You can have a bond clean with no commissions, that is possible, right? And then you tell the client transparently, I'm gonna charge you 1%, for financial planning or for investment management or for this and the other, right? Or you can put that 1% or 1.5% or whatever you want, you can tuck it into the bond. I mean, it's typically the IFA who decides how they want to make money and the business model. Exactly. The bond just offers the bond offers the two options. So the IFA chooses one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Understood. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning, Andiri. I know you've been working on a lot of these cases recently. If anyone wants to have a conversation directly with Andiri to discuss an existing offshore bond, whether it's inside a QROP, a SIT, whether it's in Malta, Gibraltar, the UK, whatever it might be, you can get in touch below via the usual description link to find a day and a time which is suitable for you, and we'll make sure your inquiry goes over to Andiri or one of our senior advisors at the team. Andiri, thank you for joining this morning. Have a good rest of the week, and speak with you soon, Andiri.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.